God look absolutely ridiculous. But the point here is that if there is one lost sheep, be it this mother's son or your worst enemy,
Yes.
God is going to go out and look for that sheep until he finds it.
That's right.
See? So that's what the parable teaches us. Now, another thing we've got to look very carefully at here is this old notion that sin itself is okay. The traditional Christianity, primarily fundamentalism, teaches secretly that sin is not a problem. The problem is God's attitude towards sin. See? In other words, you can sin with impunity, but God doesn't like you to sin, and God has told you he is going to punish sin, and God's honor is hung on the fact that he will do what he said he will do, which is to punish sin, see?
So if God didn't punish sin, sin would have no price.
Yeah, sin would have no price at all if it wasn't for the fact that somehow God just hates it, you know? It's against God's personality. He's made certain laws because that's the way he wants it. And if it weren't for God, you could break those laws and nothing would happen to you. This is really the whole problem, the whole fallacy behind the traditional notion of hellfire, is that you can't just let people sin and live forever and ever sinning. Somehow they're going to have to be punished, see. But the parable of the lost sheep tells us that the sheep, the little lamb, is in a very dangerous situation. Why does that shepherd go out and save that sheep?
Can't save
Die if he
himself.
doesn't.
Because the sheep is going to die if he doesn't save it, see? He's out there with the wolves, he's out there with the thorns and the briars, he's out there where there's no water. It's a very hostile environment. It could be rainy, it could be snowing. He's going to freeze to death. Meaning, the separation from the shepherd is going to cost that sheep his life. What are the chances that sheep doesn't want to be saved? None. None whatever. That little animal is out there, is bleeding, is hard out for help. He wants to be saved. Every single sinner is in that position.
Well, it's like the illustration from the Old Testament where the city was starving and there was food outside, and these lepers, they were eating hard out, having a ball, saying, you know, because the soldiers all ran away, and they said, we're not doing the right thing, we should go in and tell them.
That's right.
So they did, and somebody would say, oh, I'm not going to go out there and eat all that defiled food of those old, no good enemy, whatever they were, Assyrians or somebody. As you pointed out, everyone went out because they had a great hunger, didn't they?
That's right. See, sin is starvation in and of itself.
Yeah.
And the idea of a sinner who doesn't want to be saved is total nonsense. Total nonsense. Sin is self-destructive.
Right.
Sin is starvation. And if there is anyone who appears to be rebelling at this point or any other time, it's because he has not yet discovered that everything he wants and hopes for is found in his Father's house.
Okay.
And it's just a question of time. Now, you take somebody like Saul of Tarsus. In the whole of Judea, there certainly could not have been a more reprobate man than that. One who was rebelling against everything that Jesus had taught, everything that the church was teaching, and God deliberately selected this stubborn, reprobate man to work his will on him. Now, the text you read about an hour ago, Ephesians, Paul, an apostle called by the will of God.
Yeah.
And we say, hold it, Paul. Didn't you want to do this? Wasn't this your will? Are you doing this unwillingly?
Yeah.
What did God say he would do to you if you didn't accept this commission? See? Nonsense. Paul was full of joy, full of happiness. He says that, I'm the chief of sinners, but the very fact that I've been forgiven so much has made me love much. The chief of sinners is the only one who can be the chief of apostles, you see.
Okay.
Here Jesus shows himself to the worst reprobate mind in all of Judea, and instantly he accepts. You see. Here's another man who's lived his life in crime, burglaring, robbing, murdering. He's hung on a cross next to Jesus. He looks at Jesus, presto, he accepts him just like that. See, the thief on the cross, changed. A man whom the whole church would reject as being the least possible qualified to accept the gospel, and yet in the moment he finds it.
Okay, I agree about that. But what are we going to do with the other thief who rejected? What are we going to do with Judas, who spent 3.5 years with Jesus and then not only rejected salvation, but betrayed his Lord?
They need more information.
They need more information
That's
and
right.
more time.
They need more time. That's exactly it. Though the shepherd is still going to go after those lost sheep, and he's still going to find them
In a future age?
in a future age.
So you're talking about a second chance?
That's right. It is a second chance. Now,
What about a third and fourth? You think?
Well,
what would God said something about 7 times 70? Does that fit in here?
well,
Infinite numbers.
possibly yes, but you see, here's what happens. We don't realize that we are living in an age of ambiguity right now. Men do not have all the information they need to make a choice for eternity. Why is this? Because certain people are in a situation where they have not been able to discover the real evil of evil.
Okay.
See, we're living in a padded situation, like, well, in a way we're kind of in our Father's house. You know how children are so rebellious when they get into the teenage and they just don't want to do anything their parents say, and yet here's the parent putting 3 square meals in front of them, buying all the clothes on their backs, practically anything they want, showering them with blessings, giving them the keys to the car, letting them do everything they want, and yet the better, the more gracious the parents are, the more wild and rebellious the child is, see?
Okay.
Okay, now, why is that child rebelling?
Okay.
Because he doesn't have the facts of life.
Doesn't have a contrast to much of any kind.
The very graciousness of the house is what is creating the kinds of misunderstandings in his mind which produce the rebellion. And what we say, buddy, what you need is to go into the army. And you know, it's right. If that child can be taken out of this soft, cottony environment and put into another environment where cause and effect follow just like that, then they wise up. Now this is what the lake of fire is.
And that's what happened to the prodigal son.
Yeah, that's what happened in the pig pen. See? Now, down here in this age, we're still kind of living in the Father's house. You can sin and you can get away with it. You can abuse your neighbor. Somebody's going to forgive you. The judge will say, oh, he's just a young kid. He doesn't know any better. I'll give him 90 days, put him on probation. This life is full of grace. And as a result, so-called reprobate minds are not able to really learn the evil of evil, see?
Okay.
Because the world is full of wonderful, forgiving, loving people, like parents,
Okay.
neighbors, men of goodwill, who are saying, let's protect the child, the rebellious child. You know, maybe he'll change his mind. What happens in the lake of fire is the grace and the mercy are removed.
Okay.
And for the first time, sinners can see exactly the evil of their own sin on them. They will eat their own medicine, and then they will be able to make up their minds. And this is the astonishing thing about the lake of fire. Because for many people, this will for the first time provide them with the information they need to make a free, wise decision. The lake of fire is the pig pen for the prodigal son.
Well, I didn't understand this. I still don't understand all the ramifications of it. But here's something that I find very interesting. In Revelation 20, we have the millennium.
We've got about 2 minutes left.
Well, I better close this off then. But anyway, the lake of fire is going to create a great desire for the water
For the water of life.
Water of
Yes.
life. I'd like to say, friends, that this tape is coming to a close, as our cameraman told us here. And we really appreciate your staying with us, and it seems like it's only been a few minutes. Time has gone by so quickly. We have 2 other videos on the character of God, which give a more simplified version of why God is not destroyed, giving the information in my books, In the Father's Heart, The Wonderful Truth. If you would like to watch these videos, just write to God's Last Call, Post Office Box 426, Scappoose, Oregon 97056. If you'd like a study, Beyond the Tyranny of Angels, Mark Silver has prepared this one, and we will we'll send that out to you. And if you want to write to Mark, his address is, well, do you have a new address now, or is this the same address, Mountain Lake Terrace?
That's good enough.
Okay, the Human Destiny Foundation, 23006 59th Avenue West, Mountain Lake Terrace, Washington 98043. What's your phone number, by the way?
You can call us at 206